Ahí está. Ok, entonces eso es. Entonces, cuando hablamos de la fonética y de la fonología, tenemos cosas así que podrían considerarse cosas prescriptivistas y cosas descriptivistas. Entonces, una actitud, por ejemplo, prescriptivista es cuando hablamos de la eliminación de la S al final de palabra. Entonces, en vez de decir más o menos, se dice más o menos. Hay alguna persona que dice que es una forma inferior de hablar y esa obviamente es en parte una actitud, digamos, tipo prescriptiva hacia la lengua. Yo les di el ejemplo de cuando yo antes trabajaba en una fábrica en Los Ángeles. Y en la fábrica había puro hablante del español, entonces yo hablaba español con ellos, pero como hablo yo, como mi esposa es chilena, entonces hablo, me como la S, elimino la S al final de palabra. Pero tengo un amigo ahí que trabaja ahí que decía, cada que yo hablaba, decía, no, no se dice español, se dice español, no se dice más o menos, se dice más o menos. Entonces su actitud hacia ese dialecto era una actitud medio prescriptiva, que hay que pronunciar todas las S's. Entonces, y eso es. Entonces, cuando hablamos de incluir algo sobre la fonética o la fonología, es que hay alguna actitud tanto hacia la gramática como la pronunciación que pueden considerarse prescriptivistas. Un lingüista descriptivo o descriptivista uh, simplemente describe cómo se pronuncia. Y luego da razones lingüísticas y fonética, por ejemplo, por ejemplo, la eliminación de S o en el dialecto argentino, la variedad argentina, porque dicen yo me llamo en vez de yo me llamo, son razones históricas, pero esas son, digamos, razones descriptivistas y las razones y las actitudes prescriptivistas o prescriptivas serían así como no se pronuncia así, se dice así y cosas así. Entonces eso es lo que quería que incluyeran ahí, como algo sobre las actitudes hacia cierto tipo de pronunciación. ¿Hay alguna pregunta sobre el número 1? ¿Ninguna pregunta? ¿Ninguna pregunta? Ok. Entonces, número 2. A ver si hay alguien que me diga, ¿cuál es la diferencia entre fonema, alófono y grafema? ¿Cuáles son las diferencias? A ver, ¿hay alguien que quiera decir? Nadie, nadie. Ok, primero que nada, ¿qué es un fonema? ¿Se acuerdan? Un fonema.
Es la abstracta representación de sonidos.
Exacto, entonces es lo que tenemos en la mente, la representación mental de los sonidos de una lengua. Entonces, cuando escuchamos P o B, en nuestra mente tenemos una representación, digamos, de un P o B prototípicos. Entonces, y es puramente mental. Entonces, es la representación que hemos adquirido a través de nuestra adquisición de la lengua de los sonidos básicos, los sonidos esenciales de nuestra lengua. Cuando escribimos un fonema, ¿qué usamos para representar un fonema? ¿Corchetes, barras oblicuas u otra cosa? ¿Qué usamos para representar un fonema? Barras oblicuas, corchetes u otra cosa. Y dije, it starts with barras and ends with oblicuas. Barras oblicuas, entonces. Usamos slashes, basically. Barras oblicuas para los fonemas, entonces. Entonces, sí, los fonemas o el fonema es la representación mental. ¿Qué es un alófono, entonces? ¿Qué es un alófono? ¿Qué es un alófono?
Un alófono es un sonido que enseña variaciones
Ya, un alófono
en
va.
la pronunciación.
Exacto. Un alófono básicamente es cómo se pronuncia el fonema. Entonces lo que escuchamos es lo fonético, entonces. Lo fonético. Lo que sale de la boca. Entonces, los fonemas a veces tienen varios alófonos, dependiendo muchas veces del contexto fonético. Por ejemplo, si tenemos digamos, el fonema este fonema bilabial, oclusivo y sonoro tiene por lo menos dos alófonos, dos representaciones físicas, digamos, dependiendo del contexto fonético. Tenemos el fonema, no, alófono oclusivo y el alófono aproximante. Sabemos que este alófono se manifiesta después de una pausa y después de una consonante nasal. Después de una consonante nasal. So this is this phoneme is said like this after a pause and after a nasal. So un beso, también si hago una pausa y luego digo beso cuando empiezo una oración, entonces oclusiva. En todo otro caso, especialmente contexto o intervocálico. So this is important. Especially intervocálico, you have the approximate allophone para B. Entonces, en contexto intervocálico es donde, y en todo otro contexto, pero mucho más común, el contexto intervocálico es mucho más común. Entonces, este alófono acá se ve mucho más en contextos intervocálicos. Entonces, eso es lo que es un alófono. Es la representación fonética, lo que se escucha, lo que sale de la boca cuando hablamos. Es la representación fonética de un fonema. A veces los fonemas simplemente tienen un mismo alófono. Entonces, por ejemplo, en Spanish, en varios dialectos del español, solo tenemos un alófono, P, la oclusiva sorda, la oclusiva bilabial sorda, solo tiene un alófono. Y ese alófono es un alófono oclusivo. So the phoneme could be its own allophone in some cases. Then in other cases, like with the alveolar N, we have up to 4 allophones. Entonces, ¿preguntas sobre alófono? ¿Ninguna pregunta sobre lo que son los alófonos? ¿Ninguna? Grafema es sencillo. Un grafema es un símbolo ortográfico. So it's the alphabet, basically. The letters we write with are grafemas. Entonces, muy bien. ¿Alguna pregunta sobre el número 2? ¿Sobre la pregunta número 2? ¿Ninguna pregunta? ¿Ninguna pregunta? Nada, nada. Okay. Looks like you're all ready for the test. No questions. Okay. Número 3. ¿Alguien me puede decir cuál es la diferencia entre día y familia? What are the differences between día y familia? Tienen en común las dos vocales I, A. Sin embargo, la secuencia de vocales parece tener diferente característica. ¿Cuáles son esas diferencias?
Día
Bueno,
es
adelante.
un hiato y
Yes.
familia es un diptongo.
Muy bien. Familia es diptongo. The IA en familia es diptongo. ¿Por qué diptongo? ¿Qué es un diptongo? ¿Qué es un diptongo?
Like a supportive vowel and then
Mhm.
another vowel that make kind of like one sound.
Exactly. A diphthong is when 2 vowels are contained in one syllable. So they don't make up 2 syllables. So for example, in Spanish, diphthongs always consist of a high vowel, either an I or a U, and then a mid or a low vowel, which is an E, O, or an A. And then, so these ones, your I and your U, you can represent them if you're doing a transcription with the frowny face under it, or just the J for the I. And the U can be a U with a frowny face or just a W. Entonces, el diptongo es cuando hay una secuencia de 2 vocales que forman parte de una sola sílaba. Día, como dijo Archer, es hiato. Y hiato es cuando hay 2 vocales que son en sílabas separadas. Entonces, día son 2 sílabas, día. And the reason ia doesn't form a diphthong there is because you've accented the I, which separates it then from the A. So you don't say dia, it's dia, dia. In this case, if you accented the I in familia, then it would be familia, familia, but you don't. So it's just familia, familia. So the difference is diptongo y hiato. ¿Pregunta? Ninguna pregunta? Okay, so examples of this might be the one I always give to the beginning students, tell them that accents matter. Tenía, ¿qué quiere decir? Yo, ella, él tenía en el imperfecto, el modo imperfectivo. Y luego tenía, without an accent, which means tapeworm, un parásito horrendo. Entonces los acentos sí hacen una diferencia. Entonces hay un ejemplo de la diferencia entre hiato y diptongo. Entonces, también tenemos continuo y continuo. Write that right. Continuo. Continuo, continuous, continuo. I continue. Entonces, we've split the diphthong right there. It's no longer wo, which would be written phonetically like that, if you want to write it like that. And now here it's just uo. So it's uo. Split the syllable up. Pregunta sobre la número 3. La pregunta número 3. Diptongo y hiato. ¿Ninguna pregunta? Okay. Moving on. So, ¿cuáles son los parámetros diferentes para la clasificación de las vocales? ¿Cómo clasificamos las vocales? Clasificamos la consonante con modo, punto y voz. Pero las vocales son diferentes. ¿Cuáles son los parámetros para clasificar las vocales? Hay 3, pero en español solo nos enfocamos mayormente en 2. Pero, ¿cuáles son los 3 parámetros para clasificar las vocales en cualquier lengua?
Altura de la lengua.
Altura de la lengua. Muy bien. And that's the first one you say when you have a vowel. So you high vowel, mid vowel, low vowel. ¿Cuál es el segundo parámetro?
La posición de la lengua anterior, central o
Posterior, sí. Sí. So it's just in English they call it frontness or backness of the tongue. En español, desplazamiento hacia adelante o hacia atrás de la lengua. So when you're producing a vowel, your tongue goes up and moves forward or backward. So E is up and forward. So E, U is still up, but backwards. And then if you want to go ah, it moves to a centralized position, it goes down and kind of forward in the center position. E from an ah would be ah, eh, you move up a bit and forward. E to an O would just, your tongue moves back like that. If you went from an O to an E, you'd go, your tongue would go up and forward. You go from an E to let's say an ah, your tongue would go back and down, kind of there, that way. Entonces, y luego, el tercer parámetro, this only has to do with U and O in Spanish, redondeamiento. So rounding of the lips, U and O en español. En otras lenguas hay más vocales redondeadas. Por ejemplo, en inglés tenemos una vocal posterior redondeada, U, y una no redondeada, like book. So we have to distinguish, we use that to distinguish between back vowels in English, but in Spanish, you don't need that distinction because U is a high vowel, O is a mid vowel. They're not both high vowels, like in the English U and So, altura de la lengua, desplazamiento de la lengua hacia adelante o hacia atrás, y luego redondeamiento de los labios. Muy bien. ¿Alguna pregunta? So if we were going to classify this vowel in Spanish, how would I classify it? How would I say it? I'd say vocal. What kind of vowel is that? An E. How would I classify that?
Media y anterior
Media anterior. Yeah, and it's no redondeada, but we're not going to worry about that. But media anterior. Muy bien. If I were to do that one, U, how would I say it? Vocal.
Alta y posterior.
Alta y posterior. Excelente. Muy bien. ¿Preguntas sobre las vocales? ¿Ninguna pregunta? Okay. Classification of allophones. Entonces, I can just write this down. Okay, so this would be dental, oclusiva, and is it sorda o sonora? ¿Es T sorda o sonora? ¿Qué dicen?
Sorda.
Sorda, muy bien. In a way, if you're doubting, is it sorda o sonora? Make the sound while touching your vocal cords. Nothing's going on in the vocal cords, as opposed to if I go d, 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 something's going on in my vocal cords. Same with s, okay, that's sorda. But if I want to go zzz, zzz, my vocal cords are moving. So if I feel vibration here, when I'm making that sound, then it is a sonido sonoro. And if there's nothing, it's sordo. Okay, aquí tenemos bilabial, oclusiva, sorda. Muy bien. I want to do examples. I guess we can do examples. This would just be, I mean, I don't know. Tu, there you go. Tu, here's my example. No, that ru. Tu. This pan. Okay, this one right here. Interdental, fricativa, sorda. And this is interesting because it happens in Madrid and most of Spain only when you see these sequences, CE, CI, y luego Z. Anything written CI, CE, or Z, like gracias, we gracias, CE, like, I don't know, what's the CE?
Barcelona.
Barcelona, there you go, Barcelona, and then Z, zapatos, or something like that. Or my favorite word, civilización, because that's CI, ZA, CI, civilización, entonces. So it has to be one of those, although there are parts in Andalusia where they use theta for everything and they have no S. So let me copy that right here. So let's just do that. C, I gotta get my insert symbol here. Civiliza. Then I give my vowel. There we go. Civilización. That's how you'd say it. Civilización. Want to do zapatos? We could do zapatos also. Zapat. And it'd be a regular S right there. Because in Spain, the S is in the most of Spain. Dialectally, it varies in southern Spain. Most of Spain is just an S. Zapatos. Muy bien. ¿Pregunta hasta ahí? No. ¿Ninguna pregunta? Why did I put this one here instead of a regular B? ¿Por qué, por qué, por qué? Why did I put the aproximante en vez de la oclusiva? It's civilization, civilización. Look at the context. There you go, that looks better. Civilización. It's intervocálico. Between vowels, so it becomes an approximant. Muy bien. Aquí, hablando de aproximantes, tenemos velar, aproximante, and sonora. Consonante, velar, aproximante, sonora. So an example of this would be, and I gotta copy it here. Example of this would be lago. Lago. Entonces, otra vez, contexto intervocálico. Ahí. Entonces se vuelve aproximante. Aquí tenemos You could say dorso alveolar. So predorso alveolar, predorso alveolar, or just alveolar. Fricativa. And this is sonora. Entonces, consonante sonora. Z. Un ejemplo de eso sería mismo. So this, so we quickly look at this. This phoneme becomes this allophone when the following consonant is voiced. So mismo. Entonces. ¿Preguntas sobre eso? ¿Sobre la clasificación ahí? ¿Ninguna
La
pregunta?
T,
Ajá.
¿por qué no es apicodental?
Apico- Yeah, you could put apicodental. Dental, yeah, apicodental. That's a little bit more specific, pero está bien. Apicodental. So I'll just put that in parentheses. Same with this one. Muy bien. ¿Más preguntas? ¿Ninguna pregunta? Okay. Now we're going to allophones. Fricativa, velar, sorda. So like Mexico or jarabe, jarabe. Nasal, palatal, sonora. Let me see if I can find that symbol. That's the annoying part about it. It's finding the symbol, but it's one of the weird end symbols. So if not, I'll just write it on the whiteboard. No, come on.
I think my group accidentally used the slashes for this one instead of the brackets.
Okay.
Is that okay? Just for the review or not on the actual exam, just for the review.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a look at it. I'll take a look at it. Whenever it says phonetico, that just means allophones. In all cases, assume allophones.
Okay.
Because they are more, they represent more sounds. Like you can give more sounds with allophones. And I cannot find that nasal symbol I'm looking for the enye. Maybe it's here. Here we go. There it is. That's a sub. It shouldn't be a. That's a superscript, but that's as close as I'm going to get right now. So it should just be a regular big N one right there. But if you want to zoom in, just so you can see what it looks like, it's like a hooked end, but the hook goes out and to the left. That's your enye. Okay, aproximante dental sonora. That is this little guy right here. Vibrante múltiple sonora. Remember, we're just using the stem R. So there's a little stem right there for the vibrante múltiple. A vocal posterior alta. There you go. There you go. Yeah, Archer put the. I got copy that symbol from now on. Thanks, Archer. Muy bien. ¿Alguna pregunta sobre estas representaciones fonéticas? ¿Ninguna pregunta? Okay. Okay, I'm just going to use the whiteboard for this one. Activamente. So you got the brackets. Activamente. I'll do all of them actually. That I can. Rasgadura. Inquieto. Hexágono. I think I'm gonna get these 4. I'll do the last 2. So these are the first 4. ¿Alguna pregunta? De los primeros 4. Notice that this is a dental N because it's right before a dental consonant. And then rasgadura So that's a z because it comes before a voice sound right there. Rasgadura. Or if you're in Chile, you just cut it out. You get ragadura, ragadura. And you have a lot of approximants because you have intervocalic, or it's not intervocalic, but it's not after a pause or nasal, but intervocalic right here, intervocalic up here as well. And then intervocalic down here. Inquieto, that's a velar end because that's a velar consonant after it. You could do the I with a frowny face under it for that one too, if you want. Preguntas sobre lo primero cuatro? Now, why did I put a KS here? Because it's written with an X. Why did I put a KS right there? Why did I put a KS? What happened if I put an X right there? It changed it because that X is a velar fricative. So that would, if I put an X to represent orthographic X, this, I would make a completely different word. It'd be ejagono, ejagono. So you got to be careful with orthographic X because it actually represents two sounds. Orthographic X represents two sounds, x, K and S, x, hexagono, hexagono. I don't know why I put the accent on there. You can, I'm not, if you put accents, that's fine. If you didn't, that's fine too. Preguntas sobre lo primero cuatro, entonces.
I
Ninguna
think
pregunta?
also we didn't do like the diphthong, like to indicate the little frowny underneath. But are you gonna do that
You
on the
can,
test?
yeah, on the test. So you can represent it like that, or you can represent it with the, I gotta turn this around. Okay, J. You're gonna just pick one way and be consistent with it. Entonces. So don't put like I with a frowny over here and then a J down here, I with a frowny over here and a J down here. Pregunta? ¿Más pregunta? Okay, I'm gonna do the last two now. Okay, refunfuñar. So. And then ingeniero. Okay, so for a refunfuñar, I put this symbol under it. In your book, they have that symbol that's a labiodental nasal that comes before a labiodental consonant. We haven't really gone over it, and some people debate it. So you could put it there or not. I'll accept an alveolar end there, refunfuñar as well, but you could use that one as well. Pregunta sobre número uno. Número dos, once again, a velar end because it comes before a velar consonant, a velar fricative. Ingeniero, 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 ingeniero. Pregunta? I think that's it. Yeah.
So is like one letter wrong? Is that the whole thing wrong, or is there like partial credit?
It's the whole test wrong. I take points off for other questions if you get it wrong in the transcription. No, I'm just kidding. I usually take off like a quarter point. They're like, say it's worth 5 points. I take off a quarter point per error. Entonces. So you get
Okay.
partial credit. Yeah, that would be very, that'd just be terrible to take off everything if you made one error. Because you've noticed I make mistakes sometimes, I forgot to put little marks here and there. So it wouldn't be fair. And it wouldn't help you learn it either. So, okay. Más pregunta sobre, that's it for this. So, ¿hay alguna pregunta sobre el trabajo en grupo? Ninguna pregunta. Nada de preguntas. Let's go over modo, punto y voz real quickly. What does punto refer to? What does punto refer to? What does punto refer to? Punto.
Isn't that points or period?
Huh? No, but what does it refer to when we're talking about sounds? Like the punto de articulación, the punto de un sonido, de una consonante. Yeah, where the articulatory organs meet. So if it's bilabial, your lips touch. If it's labio dental, then your lower lip touches your upper teeth. If it's apicodental, then the point of your tongue touches the back of your teeth. Interdental, your tongue goes between your teeth. So it's where the órganos articulatorios donde se juntan o se aproximan. Modo se refiere al flujo del aire. So the flow of the air. How restricted or unrestricted is it? So on one end, you have complete restriction with your occlusives and then your consonantes africadas. And on the other end, you have less restricted, your aproximantes, your laterales y cosas así. Y fricativas también. Fricativas están como más o menos que en medio. Pero, y nasales también, donde fluye el aire con una consonante nasal fluye por la nariz mayormente. Entonces, modo se refiere al flujo de aire. Qué tan restringida o restringido está el aire. Entonces, y voz, obviamente, se refiere a la actividad de las cuerdas vocales. ¿Están vibrándose o no? Si se están vibrando, entonces es una consonante sonora. Oh, gotta fix that. Sonora. Y si no están vibrando, es una consonante sorda. Muy bien. ¿Alguna pregunta más? ¿Ninguna pregunta más? Ok, entonces lo que vamos a hacer ahora, le voy a mandar esta hoja. Where is it? Now you have that one. Esta hoja. So, some of the same questions, pero es un repaso que quiero que hagan en grupos, entonces, que tiene que mayormente que ver con el capítulo 2, porque necesitamos más práctica con el capítulo 2. Y luego vamos a repasar la respuesta. Si no terminamos hoy, obviamente en la próxima clase en martes vamos a seguir repasando también. Entonces, sí, vamos a tratar de terminar con esto hoy. Sí, yeah, because next class that's when the test is due. So we'll try to finish reviewing this today. So se lo mando en el chat. Okay. Repaso. Ok, ¿todos recibieron eso? ¿Les llegó a todos en el chat? Did everyone get the thing in the chat? Ok, muy bien. Entonces lo voy a dividir en grupo y voy de grupo en grupo para ayudar, para ver cómo están y todo. Y luego vamos a dejar tiempo al final para repasar todas las respuestas. So you have about 15, let's say 15 minutes, what is it, 25, 20 minutes till about 1:30, and then we'll spend the rest of the time going over it, reviewing it. So breakout rooms. Adelante. Esto es para el número 4. ¿Ninguna pregunta? Want me to hold this up a little longer? Anyone? Okay. I'll move to number 5 while I hold this up. ¿Cómo se decide cuál alófono nasal se tiene que usar para una transcripción en una transcripción fonética? Right here, we're just talking about the alveolar nasal. The alveolar nasal, for the purposes of this test, is 4 allophones. If it comes before a bilabial consonant, it becomes a bilabial. If it comes before a dental consonant, it becomes a dental in its place of articulation, a dental N. If it comes before a velar consonant, it becomes a velar N, the little hooked one. And in any other context, it stays an alveolar N. So I'll write that down so we can see. So regular alveolar N. And then, so we have our alveolar, we have our dental, we have our velar, and we have our bilabial. So I wrote that kind of fast, but yeah. So it's before a T and a D, it becomes dental. Before a K and a G, it becomes velar. Before a P and a B, it becomes bilabial. And in every other context, it's just alveolar. Entonces, sorry, I wrote that kind of fast, but that's kind of messy. I'll hold it up while I go to the next one.
When
What's
the
the difference-
hook stays
Uh-huh.
on the left side, does that mean it's the N with the tilde
Yeah.
on top?
So if you write a nasal like this, a hook going to the left, that's your enye. Nya. So make sure not to confuse those. I sometimes like, okay, which one? Okay, the hook goes that way. Okay. The difference between a phonetic and a phonemic transcription. Phonetic transcription is the one in brackets where you represent each sound as it comes out. A phonemic transcription is in the slashes where you only represent the phonemes. So you wouldn't have like approximants in a phonemic transcription because those are phonemes. You wouldn't have dental or velar ends because in a phonemic transcription, because those are not phonemes, they're allophones. Pregunta? Okay, let me erase this. We're coming up on time right now. Phonetic trend, the phonetic, the allophone. So I'll just, that's just number A is your P. That B, that N is velar for B because it becomes before a velar, like a k sound. So those are the first two. Águila, that's a regular águila, that is actually águila. That would be an approximate águila. Águila, that's your G right there. Ambos, that's a regular B because it comes after a nasal. Pes, that's just an S, or if you're in Spain, becomes your interdental. So it depends on where you're at for pes. Roca, vibrante múltiple. Vibrante múltiple for roca. General, that is your velar fricative, the X in brackets. H, maravilla, that's your curly QJ. So I'm not very good at drawing that one, that's your curly QJ. For maravilla. Sabe is your approximate B because it's intervocalic, it's between vowels, so it's your long stemmed capital B right there. And then emphasis, I would just put this as a regular alveolar N, but some people like to put that symbol, that hooked M, which means a labiodental nasal. I'm fine with either. We haven't really gone over the labiodental one, so just put an alveolar one there. Pregunta? Ninguna pregunta? So these are just transcriptions. We don't have time to go over the transcriptions. Is there any specific question on any of the transcriptions on number 8? Ninguna pregunta?
Are you gonna put the key up for this review?
Yeah, I can put a, yeah, I can put up a key, the key for that. So for, yeah, I'll put up a key for that.
Thank you.
Empiezan con consonant, yeah, so, all right. Muy bien. So real quickly, moving on. I will put this up on Blackboard, but this is your test. It's open book, so I can just show it to you. Make sure you follow instructions. What gets students a lot of times is this, like stuff like this. That's why I put it in red this time. If it's false, correct it so it's true. You can write a new sentence. You can just cross out words in the original false sentence. Whatever you do to make it true if it's false. So make sure you do that. Right here is just fill in the blank. You have, you give a symbol. If you have a symbol, you have your punto, modo, punto y voz, or if it's like a vowel symbol, you give your height and desplazamiento. And then if it's, you have the description, you give the symbol, and it's all allophones. So put it in brackets. And then transcriptions. So you're gonna have to transcribe this sentence as an allophonic transcription. And I actually thought about it, since it's a long one, it's only 5 and it's 5 points. I'm only gonna take out 0.05 points per error. So, and you have 3 of these. And then you have short answer. And then, yeah, 3 short, you have to, and you basically follow the instructions. Respond to 2 of them. Now, if you respond to all 3, what I tend to do is I grade the 2 best, so you get full points, but you're giving yourself extra work sometimes if you respond to all 3 and they're all good answers. You've just given yourself extra work. So I only read 2 of them. But yeah, that's your test right there. Pregunta? Una pregunta? Okay, this will go up on, oh, go ahead. I heard a question. Is there a question?
Yeah, if we plan to write it out for like the transcriptions,
Mhm.
do you want us to just type out the parts that we can type out and then just like say like note the scanned copy or whatever?
Yeah, what you can do is whatever is most convenient. Usually these would be like in-person exams and everyone will be writing everything down. But what you can do, you can print it out, do everything by hand and take a picture and upload that as like a JPEG to Blackboard, and that's fine. Or you can upload a typed portion and then like have like an addendum, say, I have, for questions, for parts C and D, I have, an appendix or something like that. So whatever is most convenient for you. Just as long as it's there in some form or fashion. Is that okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Muy bien. ¿Más pregunta? So I know we're over time. I'm going to owe you like a full year's tuition by the end of the semester, pero ¿más pregunta?
And this is due by midnight on Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah, Tuesday by midnight, 11:59 p.m. We'll still start chapter 5 on Tuesday, but you have till the end of Tuesday to finish this test up. So the full weekend, and there are the parameters. You can ask me any logistical question, like about the instructions or what I'm expecting. That's fine. I just can't answer any other questions because because the take-home test, it's open note, open book, it's open everything except for the professor, basically, and except for partners. You can't. It's an individual test. You can't, form a group or an alliance or whatever. That's not really nerdy, an alliance. I've been playing too much D&D, but you can do that. You can't do that. It's an individual test, so it's open everything as an individual, basically. So, muy bien. Si no hay ninguna pregunta, entonces I will get working on that key. I'll have it either up today or tomorrow for the review sheet. Y nos vemos entonces el martes. Entonces, cualquier pregunta logística del examen, que me avisen. I'll upload that test right after we end this chat, the Zoom. And you can also, I'll upload this review video as well onto my YouTube station, my YouTube channel, or whatever. Muy bien. Ok, nos vemos. Gracias por venir. Chao, chao. Sí. All right, let me stop the recording.